because frankly, they don't see us as full people. I know it hurts to like hear it like that, but it's just how it is. And it sucks. Hi, and welcome. We're not live in VR chat for the very first Ask a Therapist radio show. I am so glad you're here with me today. So, I think it's really important to first, on this very, very first episode, to kind of go over the disclaimer that you saw at the beginning of the video a little verbally. So, I'll try to be really quick. But basically, I am a therapist, but I am not your therapist. The information that I give in these videos, and all of my videos to an extent, but especially these, is based on my education. It's based on my experience in the field. It can't be a substitution for therapy. It can't be mental or medical advice. So any knowledge that you gain while listening to little old me, please take it to your own care providers before you try to change your life with it. So disclaimer done. Let's talk about also, this is an Ask a Therapist show. So down in the description, you will find a link where you can fill out a form to ask me a question and get featured here or on a live stream or whatever, because I want to answer your questions and help my communities. And what are my communities exactly? Well, hi, I'm Ria. My pronouns are she, her. You probably will hear this in a couple of different videos, but I am a therapist that predominantly works with the trans and neurodivergent community. And those are the type of questions that I want, is people that want information about those things. Specifically though, when it comes to the neurodivergent stuff, I am an expert in autism and ADHD. It's what I have and also who I help most of the time. Every loved one in my life basically has both. So I have a lot of experience with those. So those are the type of things that, when it comes to neurodivergencies, that I know a lot of, but I know some about some other things too. So feel free to ask a question related to those things, or in general. Those are just the things that I predominantly am looking for. But I want to answer your question. So please, down below, leave one. And now for the very first question, we have Banananan, she, he. How do you get the courage to start your gender journey? Asking for a friend. Wink, wink. No, I'm sure it's actually asking for a friend. This is just an amazing first question. And in this radio studio, by the way, there's a soundboard. Oh my gosh, wow. It is a really good question. And I'm going to have too much fun playing with this, by the way, throughout these episodes that I do in this world. So you'll have to indulge me that I will be super cringe, but it will totally be for your amusement. So I think when I think of your question, Banana Nan, I think kind of two different threads are in it. The first one is the courage component, and the second one is kind of starting. Let's start with starting. Ironically enough, I feel like that's the easier thing to talk about, because to start, it can be as simple as selecting roles or gender roles in a Discord server and talking with people and having them use those pronouns and seeing you as that gender. That is such an amazingly low hanging fruit way of trying on a gender. It's where a lot of people start. Social media, Discord servers, and kind of going up from there. Usually people feel a lot of safe because it's at your own pace. It's usually in spaces that get what being trans means. That's where a lot of people start. So if you're just talking about where the floor is, that's the floor. That's where you can get what you ultimately are trying to do started. But I think you're probably asking about another thing, potentially, which is coming out. And that's super scary. Coming out is really, really hard, or it can be. Some people are very blessed and it's not. But for a lot of us, myself included, coming out can be difficult. And so how one would do that is, I think, starting with safety. You have to ensure that you are safe. If you would be in a situation where you cannot safely transition, get in a safe place before you start. Caveat, I understand that sometimes not starting is not safe either. So you have to weigh either side of that to kind of figure out what you think is ultimately right for you. There is no like right or wrong like answer here. I think that, you know, trans feminine folk have the advantage that we can start HRT in private and most people won't even notice. 1 month, not much change at all. Between 1 and 3, like permanent to semi-permanent changes. Further out than that, you're starting to get more changes. And it will be like your mileage may vary ultimately on what changes you'll actually get during that time. So trans feminine people can start a medical transition in private. It's a little harder for trans masc people because ultimately testosterone is a drug that causes more noticeable changes. You still can start ever so slightly in private, like maybe for a month or so. But once your voice cracks, you know, that's game over, GG. Like, you have to basically come out or pretend like you have a cold constantly, which I have seen someone try to do for a little bit. But that being said, there is more to transition than medical transitioning coming out. Maybe you're even like, am I sure of like who I am enough to be able to feel confident, to have that courage, right? To feel like, oh, I am in myself enough and confident and like, you know, plant the flag of trans so you can like, you know, do the thing. And I'll be honest, when I started transitioning, that was not something that I could do. When I started transitioning, I was not that confident. I didn't know I am a woman. Hear me roar. That wasn't me. I was not that person. But what I did know, I knew I wasn't a guy. I knew, okay, this guy thing is not working out for me. If I have to grow up to be an old man, I would lose it. Everything associated with being a guy was things that wasn't right, felt bad. That's gender dysphoria, which we'll talk about more probably in a moment. I wasn't sure if it was ultimately right for me to begin medically transitioning because I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a woman. I just knew I didn't want to be a guy. There were things I liked about femininity. I was scared that maybe I wouldn't be able to be a regular woman. And these are things that, you know, people early in transition think about. Some people will be like, oh, that's problematic. You know, it doesn't even matter if you have HRT. You know, you're a woman if you say you're a woman. And that is true. But people early in the process have the feeling that they want it to go well, and that can really keep people from starting. But what can make you feel more confident, even if you're not sure you want to be the gender that you think you like are, if you're like, I don't know, is that if you're very easily able to reject the gender you were assigned at birth, you can be like, nope, I'm not a guy, not a girl. Maybe I'm something else, even non-binary, but definitely I know I'm not assigned gender at birth. And that can kind of give you that firm ground that you can feel some confidence, that you can build that courage. So thank you for the wonderful question, Banananan. I don't know how many nananans you pronounce, but I'm doing the best I can. If you want more information on that, there should be, if future me is like able to actually do the thing, 5 videos that are launching on this channel. I've decided, because of Bananan's question, I'm going to do the educational one, because there's different like kinds of videos that I'll be doing on this channel, and one of them will be education on what gender affirming therapy and gender affirming care in general is like. And that was inspired by this question. I want to go into a deeper dive, and that's what the educational videos are going to be. Sometimes someone will ask me like a really long question that I really want to get deep in. And other times it's going to be like, oh, I just want to talk about a thing, so that's what I'm going to do. And ultimately, that's kind of how we will draw the line between questions and education. Or at least that's how I'm going to draw it. But maybe we, in a relationship as audience and creator, will draw a different line later. But go see the other 5 videos, hit like and subscribe, do all of the things to help me spread this channel, because hey, if you find this information useful, either the first question or the other ones I'm going to answer, comment, share, subscribe. It will help these answers get to more people. If you already knew this and you're like, Ria, that's so basic. Maybe there's someone that doesn't know this stuff yet. Maybe they need this, or maybe like you, when you started, you needed something like my channel. So please help me share it around so this can get far and wide. So on to the next question. I'm going to sing a lot on this channel. I'm so sorry. I'm going to be just uber cringe, and y'all will just make fun of me for it, as I deserve. All right, next question. Bedtime befuddlement, him asks, I know it's not healthy, but I have a problem sleeping in my binder. I get gender dysphoria from taking it off, plus with my neurodivergence, it's hard for me to start a task that doesn't give me immediate happy chemical, and my sensory issues frick up the feeling of pulling stuff over my head. I think you mean frick up when you do that. So, help, I guess? Do you have a solution for my predicament? All right, so let's start with like the really important thing. Not a medical doctor. That's not a thing that I am. And to be a medical doctor, you know, they're going to be the one that ultimately have better say on what is safe and what isn't safe. All of that being said, I've been around the block in the community, so like I have some thoughts. First off, yeah, you're going to not have to bind all the time. That is a thing that you just have to come to terms with. I have found with like switching task and neurodivergent stuff that giving yourself a reason to take it off can be helpful. So like, for example, you can't bind when you're exercising. You know, you want to build some muscles, right? Usually a lot of guys do, at least to an extent. So doing a workout can motivate you potentially to take it off. Also, if you're sweaty, that's another reason to take it off. Maybe shower and do all the things that you struggle with doing, right? So that's one idea. But let me see. I'm trying to think if there's another way that, you know, we could potentially help bedtime befuddlement. Let's see. So I do know that some compression can happen, but like it can't be all of it, can't be all the time. So what I've seen guys do historically is they will get like a binder that's a size bigger for like exercise or swimming or times when they shouldn't be binding very tightly. I've seen guys get 2 sports bras and wear those to kind of like give some compression, but ultimately like it's a break from a regular binder. Not a doctor again. I cannot stress this enough, but like it is things that I've seen other people who have been on this path that have done, and I would recommend bringing those things to a doctor. Ultimately, though, you have to kind of deal with reframing gender dysphoria. A common reframing technique that I do with people when I'm working with them is to reframe gender dysphoria as pain signals. And the reason why that is ultimately you can not hate yourself for having pain. There's like, it removes the self-hatred element by thinking of it, oh, this is a signal that's telling me I need to change something, like similar to like a broken arm. Oh no, I have to do something about this. And so basically that can be a reframe that can make it a little easier to accept, like, yep, I'm going to get to it when I can get to it. I'm going to get the care that I need when I can. And that can be a way to like, make it easier to like tolerate in the short term. Another thing that I could recommend just to help you get better with your body in general is there's a podcast, and it's kind of hard to find. If I do not remember to put this in the description, which I might forget, please like ping me in the comments. But there's a podcast on Spotify called the Transomatic podcast, and it's about getting a better connection with your bodies as it is now. It can be a very useful tool. So those are the things that I would give bedtime befuddlement, but I hope you get sweet dreams. Misty K, they ask, aside from VR chat being used to try and have a euphoric experience from an avatar's POV, what is the other type of experience would you say is also equally as important as that? Wow, that's a really important question. So, yes, doing like experience in virtual worlds can ultimately be very, very powerful and can help you figure it out. It's another place to start, to go back to the first question. that you feel safe in. You can connect with people in this world. I actually started my gender exploration in RuneScape, of all places. Like, shout out if you've played RuneScape and it wasn't 2007 Scape. It was when it was actually just RuneScape. And there was something called the Makeover Mage. And there you could easily switch your sex or gender or however you want to think about it. And a lot of people, I think myself included, who had gender stuff would play with that all the time, because I could try on being a girl and then go back. And like when I was hanging out in Publix away from the people who knew me, I could be a girl. And then when I was raiding with people I knew, I could be like a guy. And it was just a safe place. Final Fantasy XIV is another game where people have this exploration, and it can be valuable because you can connect with friends, and it's a built-in social space that you can practice gender. But let's get away from that for the remainder of this question. Let's talk about real life. Because real life is ultimately, I think, where a lot of this important stuff can happen. So, I had mentioned earlier, we were going to define gender dysphoria. What gender dysphoria is the feeling of unease or discomfort with your gender being perceived as not the one that you feel that you are. So, for example, as a trans woman, if I were to be perceived as a guy, if you were to use he, him pronouns, that would cause gender dysphoria in me. I use she, her pronouns. I, am seen like most of the time as a woman. And ultimately, if you were to misgender me or treat me as not a woman, that would cause gender dysphoria. Gender euphoria is the opposite. When I'm gendered appropriately, especially early on, when it's something new and exciting, you have this feeling of, oh my God, oneness. Yes, this is right. High resonance. It's like really, really this moment where you're just like, yes, this is right. Let's go. Exactly. Yippee. It feels good. And those are the things that I think are equally as important to an avatar, because usually these avatars cause gender euphoria. Caveat, they can also cause dysphoria if you basically feel like your true form doesn't match them. So being able to kind of tell the difference between, oh, is this happening because this isn't right for me? Or is it happening because I know I can't live up to this? And the same thing for like a real life experience. When I try to do certain things to give me gender euphoria, if it causes ultimately dysphoria, is it because this isn't right? Or is it because I don't think I can live up to the standard? These are very common issues that people have to wrestle with. And having a gender affirming mental health provider is really needed in order to kind of like figure that out. So, let me give an example. The very first time that I felt strong gender euphoria was when I had the gray off my face. When I shaved very close and then put foundation on, I felt like I saw my face for the very first time. And that was just so powerful a moment. So you can take the things you're dysphoric about and then do the opposite to cause euphoria. That being said, sometimes there can be complications. So with clothes, maybe they don't fit right because you don't have the anatomy the clothes are designed with. So you need some help, some padding, for a breast form, or maybe you need a sock or something to create a bulge downstairs if you're going in a transmasc direction. These are the things that you have to ultimately kind of keep in mind as you're trying to figure this stuff out. There is going to be some, hey, it's not going to be I am perfectly at the very beginning seeing myself as I want to be seen, because it's a transition. You have to transition. That's the thing that you have to do. But you can do some things that are pointing you in the right direction. Thank you so much, Misty K, for asking this question. So the next one is Cass, she, her. Assuming I want HRT, I need to be diagnosed as need to be diagnosed as trans first. Does autism interfere by that? By that I mean diagnosed and undiagnosed autism. Asking to know whether I should attempt getting a diagnosis for autism first, which in my country gives nothing, which is why I've never bothered, or not even disclose I have it in case it could potentially be detrimental. Thank you so much for your question, Cass. Let's talk about that. So, I'm not going to beat around the bush. There is some medical discrimination for being autistic. For example, during COVID, people with diagnosed autism were triaged at a lower tier for like breathing tubes because frankly they don't see us as full people. I know it hurts to like hear it like that, but it's just how it is. And it sucks. And that can be one of the really scary things when it comes to being autistic and getting that formal diagnosis. In your country, you said, oh, well, I don't think I'm going to get anything. But there is also things to weigh that are in the positive for getting that diagnosis, whether that's accommodations at work, whether that's federal recognition so you can get on disability if you feel that you need it, depending on the country you're in, or state recognition if, not a federal country, whatever. But those are things that have to be weighed back and forth when you're trying to decide, okay, am I going to get a diagnosis? Am I not going to get a diagnosis? Will like people in my life not believe me when I say I have certain needs? That's something else to like keep in mind. Do I need this particular thing? So those are kind of things that you weigh just on the autism side of this equation. Let's talk about being trans though and autistic. So here's the thing. There are some states in the United States, as well as some countries, that basically, especially as a youth, you won't be able to get a trans diagnosis if you are formally diagnosed with autism, because they think that we can't know our gender because we're autistic, which makes zero sense. It's infantilizing us. It's like telling us that we can't know ourselves just because we have a disability. And that is bupkis. Hate it. But it is what it is. That's something to be aware of. If you feel like, for example, if you're familiar with what it means to be low support needs or level 1, and you feel like you can just, if the act of knowing you're autistic is enough to like help you get what you need, there's a really good argument for not getting an autism diagnosis. But ultimately, it's all individualized and should be discussed with your care providers on whether you should or should not. And also, I guess, your friends and family, too. It's not just about, like, therapist people. It's what you want, and what the people who love you want, etc., etc. So, I hope that answers that question. All right. Juliet, she, her, I think, at least right now. Can we get, like, nice things about Juliet so she can, like, in the comments see what it's like to have her name be used? Anyway. Question. How does neurodivergency, feel free to go into specific aspects like hyperfixation, dissociation, etc., impact queer trans experience in positive or negative ways, and how could it be helpful or harmful? That's a really, interesting question that I don't think gets a lot of, consideration. I think that there is the, double minority problem. That's definitely in the negative category. The narrative of feeling like an other happens when you are both neurodivergent and queer/trans. And those narratives can reinforce each other in negative ways. And that's why a lot of people who are queer and trans, or both, have these feelings of low self-worth, being a problem, being too much, etc., etc. That's some reinforcement that ultimately is happening. Okay, let's talk about, a positive. I'm going to try to go back and forth if I can in this question. I think a positive is, this is actually more difficult than I thought. I think a positive of how these intersect is ultimately, how you become, or realize, I guess would be a better word, that you're those things, because I think that kind of autistic, no nonsense, I'm just going to say how it is one of the reasons why a lot of trans people in particular come out. There's the statistic of like, oh, between 15 and 30%, or maybe even more, trans people are autistic. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think Dr. Devin Price of Unmasking Autism, who's a trans guy, great guy, by the way, he's a sweetheart. I think he said in one of his books, or maybe it was an interview, that like, we're not more likely to be trans because we're autistic. We're more likely to come out. That like already going against the grain that happens inherently because we're autistic makes it easier to accept other things about ourselves that are different from society, because we kind of choose what we see as important. And I think that that is a benefit for the queer trans experience. Another negative, stress. I know I mentioned minority stress and like being a double minority for the first one, but I think how we process stress is different. So you not only have the narrative of stress, but you also have my nervous system is fucky compared to neurotypical populations. That can be a thing. That can be good. But on the other side, like say you have ADHD, that object constancy of not thinking about these things, that can be so good, because you can just like, it's like it doesn't even exist. Oh, I'm not thinking about the fact that I'm discriminated against in this moment. It isn't real. And that's a wonderful positive that I think, especially if you have ADHD or this particular symptom of like object constancy issues. And what that means, by the way, is out of sight, out of mind. People sometimes say, oh, I have issues with object permanence. I like to use object constancy because you've remembered the things exist. Like, conceptually, like, oh, thing exists. But maybe you don't actually think about it. And so therefore, it's like it doesn't exist. That's why I use object constancy instead of object permanence. Object permanence is related to the work of Piaget, who was a developmental psychologist. And you put a blanket over a ball, the baby thinks the ball doesn't exist anymore, and then you pick up the blanket and it's like, oh, wow, like the whole peekaboo thing. That's object permanence issues. We're beyond that. Our issue is when we're not thinking about it, it is like it doesn't exist. And so therefore, object constancy. Little tangent, I'm gonna be cringe. Okay, I'm sorry. All right, for the very last question, I think I'm going to scroll down because I saw it recently. Crunchy Toast, she/her asked if applicable, what aspect of being neurodivergent and or queer has made the largest positive impact in your quality of life? Thank you, Crunchy. And I'm answering it because it's a very similar question to the one we just had. I would say the most positive impact is knowing I am those things and understanding it, because then I can live my life how I want to live it. There is just so many issues that you feel like you're hitting all those roadblocks in life because you don't understand you are the way you are. Or I often describe with, say, on the gender side of the fence instead of neurodivergence, sometimes when you're trying to socialize with people as the gender that you are assigned at birth, you might feel like there's a cling film between you and the people you're trying to relate with, because you're just not relating with them how you want to. And by understanding your gender, by understanding your neurotype, you can actually actualize yourself. And that's freaking amazing. And so that's what I would say is the most positive. So if you liked this video, please like it, share it around. If you found it helpful, do the same. I will also challenge you to comment in the comment something about one of the questions that you found helpful, maybe an emoji to show that you got to the end, like a sparkle emoji, and then watch one of the other videos in this launch. I really, really appreciate all of the things that y'all have done to like support me in beginning this process, submitting all these lovely questions. Like, thank you so much. I have just so much gratitude to you all. So please like and subscribe and ring the heckin' bell. Mwah! And this is the end card. If you got all the way to the end, I really, really appreciate it. I wanted to let you know that even though this wasn't a thing when this video was created, I have started a patron Discord for only $1 a month. You can join the patron-only Discord, and for $5 or more, you can get your name in these credits at the end of videos. Please, again, watch one of the 5 launch videos. Later. Bye.